Hey, I'm Trey Bolin, your storyteller, brand photographer, entrepreneur of 14 years. I was doing the math recently and I can't say 12 anymore. It's actually been 14. But I love new beginnings, fresh starts, pivots, redirections, everything about that entrepreneur journey. And everyone has an origin story, and I can't wait to hear yours. Tracy Joy, I'm so excited to have you share with everybody, the things that kind of shaped your journey. I'm curious though, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Hmm. So this is funny. There's kind of two ways to this. So one, I always go back to it's in my blood. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, great grandparents to my parents. I mean, all the way down
Same.
on both sides. Yeah, entrepreneurs everywhere, all over the place, and different avenues of it, from bars and restaurants to entertainments and all sorts of things. So I do think that when it's in your blood, it is kind of in your blood. There's something there. But my own entrepreneur stuff started when I left my 9 to 5 job for my first baby. And I came home, and that, ADHD and entrepreneur thing kind of kicked in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all right. So what am I going to do now? I've worked my entire life. So I started sewing, something easy that I knew how to do. I had a new baby, so I was sewing
Yeah.
baby stuff. I sewed a diaper bag, put it on Etsy, and someone reached out and said, hey, could you make that into a camera bag? All right. Did you know this story, Trey?
No, I'm so
It,
here for this.
it's crazy. So I made it a camera bag, and she showed her friends, and they reached out and said, can you make me one too? So literally, this was before there were any cool camera bags. It was like straight up just black man camera bag stuff. And I
Yeah.
was cute pattern stuff. And before I knew it, I had a business, being one of the very first women camera bag entrepreneurs. My mom and I were sewing them all ourselves. I mean, we sold hundreds and hundreds of them on Etsy and my own website then that I had. And then through that, a couple of years into it, I realized I kind of like this photography thing. I kind of
Yeah.
thought maybe I would start shooting. In high school, I was, back way in the days when we were in high school, you had to pay to go into film photography, and it was too expensive, so I could never do it. And DSLRs were out now. So I picked one up, started shooting, decided to blow my accountant's mind and close my booming camera bag business to focus on photography business. So I sold all my bags to Adorama and
Wow.
selling them online for a while. And then I threw myself fully into photography. And again, Trey, you and I have these conversations, but, looking back at things now, I really do believe in divine intervention with things.
Yes.
It was all these little things of, these little God words in my ear, my guardian,
Hmm.
you want to say, saying, all right, I'm going to give this to you. And this is your opportunity. So I always say to new entrepreneurs, if you have an idea, go and do it before someone else does. I was
Oh,
one of the first
yes.
bag ladies. I was one of the first photographers in my area who was doing what we now consider lifestyle portraits. So I would say I got lucky because I got in right away.
Yes.
I didn't hesitate.
Yes.
From there. And then you and I met through my newborn photography business, and
Right.
here we are.
Well, I think it's so interesting because I'm also attracted to emerging industries. If you can be the first one in with the idea and take it for all it's worth, there is so much to be made for being the first. But what if you're not the first? What was your experience like as far as not being the first? Okay. So you were the first camera bag and then you moved on to photography, but you weren't in that field for very long before, boom, more people are in it. What's
Correct.
that like?
So my other thing that I always say is if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. So
Mm,
put your feet into the water and don't just dangle them in. Get them in there and get them wet and do it. Because if you look back on your life and you don't do what you wanted to do, it's always going to be a regret, and it's always going to be kind of hanging on you.
mm,
So even if you're not the first, even if you're not the greatest, I mean, I was never the greatest at anything, but I still had my own little box that I was in that made
hmm.
me and made other people happy. I knew I had something to offer. So if you feel the same way and you have something that you love and you're so inspired by it, brings you happiness, you just got to do it. Who cares if someone else is already doing something like it? If you can twist it and make it your own in that little bit, you just have to do it. Otherwise, there's regret.
Yes, I so believe that. There's power in the twist and the nuance.
Mm,
And I feel like that's what I tell people when I'm working with them for brand work. It's you. You are the thing that makes
yeah,
the difference. There's
100%.
a million photographers, there's a million people doing podcasts, but I'm the difference. You are the difference maker.
That's the key thing too, really, is being authentic. That's
Mm,
always the biggest thing. You have to be authentically you, not somebody else, not trying to be someone else. When you approach people, when you're talking to people, you have to be honest. You have to share your hiccups and your screw ups and your I'm only human and this is who I am, and take fun in yourself and your mistakes and your learning and your growing and all of that. Authentic authentic oh, I'm going to lose the word. You know what I mean? That big word that starts,
authenticity.
yeah, that word. See,
It really matters,
it
you
does matter.
know?
It does matter.
And I
And that's
think
more
just
right.
yes. And
Telling the
just like fingerprints, like we all are unique and individuals. And I think so many times we can think, well, I'm not different enough, or who, when we're
imposter.
having those Debbie Downer moments, right? When we're
Mhm.
being too introspective and like, oh, I'm not like so and so who's already here, you know, we're like looking up. And really, that's not the way to look.
No, but I think that's a huge thing too within any sort of entrepreneur, is that you have, it's so overused now, but imposter syndrome is a very true thing. And it can be hard to get over. But I always say to people when we do chats like this, like, there's someone looking at you saying, I wish I could do that. I wish I was doing what
Mm,
Tracy or Trey or Tanya or whoever was
mhm.
doing. So even though you're thinking that you're not good enough or you're not somebody else or you're not there, there's somebody probably looking at you saying the same. Imposter syndrome. Yeah. We like
Yes.
ourselves, our
So
own
I
worst.
have a question.
Mhm.
When you're saying there's someone looking at you, what do you do when it comes to things like people being heavily influenced by you or copying you or borrowing your concepts? What's your response to that?
So I think being in multiple industries for so long is that I've seen two things. I've seen the ones who go straight out and attack. And
Hmm.
then I see the ones who maybe gently say, let's not do it that way. Or I don't know how I'm saying it correctly, but I guess the point I want to get across is that if that happens to you, if you come out with full on claws and full on nastiness, that's going to actually reverse itself and come back on you to
Yeah.
be the jerk. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do come across that situation, you have to, and I'm not saying accept it. And I'm not saying, copying is the biggest flattery sort of thing, because it's your, and that happened to me with my camera bags. Someone
Right.
started dealing with my designs, and it was infuriating. But I have never seen a good story come from someone who was nasty and went on the attack. It doesn't work like that. So I guess it's a hard thing to fill in the blank or to really answer, because every situation is different too.
Yeah.
But you have to take it with grace and with kindness. And at the end of the day, if the person doesn't stop, the person didn't stop stealing my camera bag ideas. They took my pattern and copied it exactly. It is
Yeah.
what it is. They had their people, I had my sales, whatever. I marketed myself, I had my group, my people that I knew, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that is the right answer, that it's going to happen. And you just can't let it stop you from doing your best, from moving forward, and from the kindness element. I
Mm-hmm,
think it can be really easy to go into defense mode,
mm-hmm,
you know, and sometimes in offense mode.
mm-hmm.
And that you're so right. It never yields the results you want it to yield.
I did send cease and desist letters
Yep.
to them. So I went through the process of things. It didn't stop. And I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to lose sleep, and I'm not going to turn myself into a nasty person over it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
completely.
think there's actions that you can take if someone is stealing your intellectual property, your ideas, like you're saying,
Mhm.
do a cease and desist, take it to where it needs to be taken to,
Yep.
but don't let that be your defining moment.
Correct. Yep. Completely. Good question,
So
Trey.
Thanks. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what were those early days like? As an entrepreneur and thinking of someone that's just starting out, what was a big struggle of yours? And then I'm curious how you overcame it.
I think the struggle in my initial, I say initial industry, but my one where I really love to be in, and I was for a long time, was photography. And that is finding a client base and finding your people and marketing yourself in the right way.
Mm,
That was a real struggle, and where I was always doubting myself and always wanting more and always looking for more and trying to reach for more. And then you kind of have to sit back and remember, again, being authentically you. You have
mm,
to, branding and marketing is so important, but you have to do it the right way. You can't be sleazy about it ever.
right.
I did a lot of stuff through word of mouth. And again, just being
Mm,
myself and being authentic and being kind and trying to reach people through, they say, my friend Shannon Squires always says, hugging and kissing babies or something like that. And it's so true. When you're out there with people and showing yourself who you are, then they're going to gravitate towards you as a business person. But that was my struggle, was really trying to find my people. And they kind of found me just by being me. That sounds
yeah.
super weird, but I mean,
No.
my client base grew, and it wasn't overnight, and it felt real
Mm,
slow at sometimes. And you just have to take those deep breaths, because as an entrepreneur, it's ebb and flow. There's ups,
yeah.
downs, and you have to ride them. And when you're in those lows, you have to remember the highs. Or if you haven't had that high yet, you have to know that if you keep working, if you keep pushing, if you keep doing as long as you're doing what you love and you have that passion for it, it'll come. It'll get there.
Oh, what great advice. I think especially in today's age of TikTok famous, boom, this
Mhm,
kind of famous, boom. I did
mhm.
one video and went viral and now I'm a millionaire.
So much pressure.
Those are like the chance of winning a lottery.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
That is not going to be everyone's story. And if someone is selling you that, they're selling you that. Like, that's
100%.
not the truth. And like you're saying, it's going to be ebb and flow. And we can have slow and steady growth, but it's
Mhm.
like this. I don't know if you found that. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like
totally.
I was riding an ocean.
Yeah, totally. And you have to accept it. You have to remember, as an entrepreneur, that's where it is. You're in charge of all of it. You don't have someone else running it for you, and you're just, filling in the blanks. You have to accept and expect that.
Now, when you say you don't have someone telling you what to do, were there ways that you found in the beginning to like get rid of some of the things on your plate? Did you outsource in those beginning years?
Yes. Again, this crazy divine intervention, beautifulness that happens all around us that I didn't necessarily pay attention to. I was very fortunate, one, to have my mother, who was at home, was not working. She had quit her job and was at home.
Mm,
So she was there to help me with my littles, because I had little kids at the time too. I had toddlers at the time and a newborn at one point too. And then through my initial bag business, I made a great friend named Suzanne, who she's still one of my best friends today. Her daughter is my goddaughter. She came on one day and she was like, "Hey, I really like you. Do you want to be friends?" And it was this goofy thing that we were just like chatting about. She ended up being my customer service.
amazing.
So I gave her that part of emails and service contact. She's a lot like me. So I was blessed to have those people jump in. But also, I feel like, paying attention to when that happens and being like,
Mhm.
okay, I click with this person, or, oh, there is this situation. And again, like I said in the beginning, not letting something pass you by, to jump on that and partake in that person or that situation.
Yes. Well, and I think when you're in those first years, you're so in it. And it's hard to see that you need a partner, need
Mhm,
someone else's help,
mhm.
and that's going to leverage the growth,
Oh, yeah.
right? I know when I was knitting my
Oh,
hands to the bone, it was so hard for me to see, oh, I do need someone to bring on to help with the
yeah.
shipping. I do
Which
need to
we
hire
for
those
a reason.
grannies
Mhm.
to help
We're
me knit.
entrepreneurs for a reason. We're also control freaks.
Yes, yes. But isn't it interesting that when we let go, we can actually grow more?
That's the biggest conversation I've had with other people in the photography industry through the years. So I consider myself now retired, but I was in it for a good over a decade. Um,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing I can say, is that you have to learn to let go do what you do is good, whether that's the shooting or the editing or whatever part of the picture that you're
Mm.
doing, the knitting, and let someone else come in and help you. Yeah.
Right. Because none of us got into business to run our social media or to do the marketing we got into business for, whatever the knitting is or whatever the camera bag is or whatever the photography. You want to be a photographer, not all this other stuff.
Customer service and the marketing and
Yeah.
the other, you have to be able to, I mean, I had to humble myself and be like, all right, here you go. I will let you do this. I will give control out to you to take part.
Mm.
And almost always, always it works out for the better. And that's the way to grow your business too. If you're going to run
Right.
yourself into the ground and run yourself crazy, like I was running myself into the ground doing all of this stuff and forgetting about myself and my own health and my babies and
Mm.
my life and all these things that we forget about trying to hyper focus on building our businesses. Yeah. If you can source out something, do it.
Great, great advice. I think that's so insightful.
With marketing too, because we all think that we are genius marketers, because again, control freaks, business owners. If you have someone who can help you with marketing and knows the business and knows the ins and the outs, do it.
Mm. Yes, exactly. And I think that's so wise. And you were speaking about being a mom and an entrepreneur in those early days. Do you have any advice for my viewers that are watching that are in that same space of mom and preneur?
You can do it. You can totally do it. There's so many people out there that I have seen be successful with it. But do not forget yourself and do not forget your family, because I do have some regrets about working way too hard to make memories for other people when I
Mm.
was forgetting about my own people at home. So
Mm.
do a job done, but set yourself a schedule. Make it so that you are not working only around the clock, that you
Mm.
have that time for family, for self, all of that. So yeah, having a schedule, or even if it's a timer at your desk, something where like, okay, here's where I'm going to take a break and go for a walk for myself. Or here's when the kids get home from school and I am opting out for the next couple of hours, so that you have that time. That's important. Schedules.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, that's so well spoken. I know now that I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, my business is really different
Mhm.
than when I had no year olds, right? When there was nobody in the house but me, I could work 15-hour days, and I did because I'm a little crazy.
Yep.
And, maybe when you have the littles and they're taking naps like all the time, you can like, wow, I work 3 hours. I work 3 hours. But as they're growing, I want to be with them more. And isn't that why we became entrepreneurs, to have
Yep.
that time freedom?
Yep.
But
So
then if
don't
we fill
get
our time
lost.
freedom with work, it's not really helping.
Nope. Don't get lost in your work and your business. Remember why you are doing it. And it's not just, I don't think I know a single business owner, a successful one, that does it just for selfish reasons. We're doing it for our families, for our children, so that we can be home and do things, have that time. Excuse me. So
It's like, well,
make sure
I
that
think you're,
and you do remember that.
yes. Well, in talking about success, how did you approach failures? The opposite of success.
Failures have been funny. So here's a story. When I've had two studios for my photography. My first one was in Palatine, Illinois, and I had a really scary health thing happen where they thought I had a stroke. And I was at home with my 1-year-old baby when it
Oh,
happened, and I lost my verbal communication. It was absolutely the most bizarre thing. So that kind of woke me up, and I thought, okay, like we were
mm,
just talking about, I need to take more time for my family. So I closed my studio down, and I felt like a terrible failure for it, because I had this
mm,
booming business, but I was too afraid for my own health and my children and everything else to
yeah.
keep it. So I closed it down, super sad about it, because I love that little studio. And then a couple of years later, a little window opened up where a friend had an opening in her studio where I could rent from her.
Mm,
So my failure, what felt like a failure, was actually God giving me this beautiful little timeout, and
yeah.
then opening another door to be like, okay, here you go. Here's a second chance. Do it again,
Hmm.
but I'm going to lighten the load, because I didn't have to be the business owner then. I was in my photography studio, my photography clients, but not the studio. So as that much as that failure hurt, it did open up another door. So I want people to always remember that. I forget what the saying is, but it's something so common. When one door closes, another opens, that kind of thing. So just keep your eyes for that. We do come across failures and stuff. I mean, there were some seasons in photography where it was hard to pay rent because the clients weren't there.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think reframing failure, right? Like,
yeah,
is it a failure or is it a closed door? Is it a failure or is it a redirection or a pivot?
totally, 100%. Yep. So if you hit that failure bump, you have to look at everything else around you. And maybe you won't see it right away, but just keep on the bright side, because as long, again, as you love what you do and you're passionate about it and it's doing good out there, keep
Hmm.
plugging away. Don't ever give up. Don't let those failures hit you, because you might be surprised what opens up on the next side of it.
Exactly. We never know what's coming next. And if we give up
Huh?
before the beautiful thing happens. I was recently reading something and it was outlining scripture about all these different things that took time. And what if we had given up before?
Mm-hmm.
What if we had thrown in the towel before this? What if all these different scenarios? And it's so true. Like, we can't give up. And I think that's the
No.
heart of being an entrepreneur. So, in light of that, what are you up to these days?
I am now onto my 45th business adventure.
Yes.
So I closed my
Hallelujah. I'm on my seventh. So,
right. And it's that thing too that I said in the beginning. If you have an idea, do it. If you love it, do it. What's the harm in it? So now I'm on the bread baking train, and I am baking bread and starting to sell it to my community. So totally different than bags or photography or selling blog stuff and all the different things. I am now, and it's great. And I actually am a little overwhelmed by it, because it's been quite an awesome thing again. So yeah, now I'm baking bread and opening up a little home cottage store.
oh, I love that. It's the
Yeah.
pivots, it's the twists, the turns. And I think we can't see what's going to happen next. God can see what's going to happen next. And I think just being faithful to move forward, like you've shared. I'm
And
so glad that, what's that?
seeing those openings when
Yes.
something happens like that. It's okay. I'm baking bread and people love it. I love this, and so wants to buy it, and then so wants to buy it. Pay attention to those little openings.
Yes. Oh, such great advice. This episode's been chock full of awesome, amazing advice. One question before we go. What's your superpower?
My superpower is ADHD. A superpower? Can that?
Yes, that's my superpower too.
Oh, great. Oh, surprised that we're friends and we've known each other for so long with things. Definitely. I mean, my brain is constantly going, and sometimes it's a weapon against me and my own curse late at night, but my brain is constantly moving and shaking.
Yes, and see, that's the way that I view my ADHD as a superpower. It is not, I'm not masking anything, I'm not hiding anything. I'm finding new ways to think outside the box.
Mhm.
And I'm just so excited that you think the same way about it. I'm not like my ADHD label. I'm
No.
like, yes,
Yeah, I
thank you, God.
it is. Yeah, and I see that in my kids too. And my kids have this entrepreneur thing. My son just graduated high school, and watching it in him is entertaining to see, because it's happening all over again.
That's really cool. So now, are you selling the bread more than locally? Is there a way for us to get a loaf of that bread?
Not yet. I have my website and I just need to design it and all of that stuff. But again, I'm trying to not go full throttle crazy, which is what I do all the time. I take something and I go full throttle with it. I'm trying to take this a little bit slower and a little bit more chill, and so we'll see. Right now it's just local.
Well, I'm just excited that you came on to share with us your shifting, changing journey of pivots and all of the nuggets of truth that you shared with us. And I'll be excited to see when we can actually get some of that bread delivered to our door, because I don't
You'll be
think you're going to stay local.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for this.
Thanks so much for joining me, and join us next time for our next origin story. Bye.
Bye.